It's 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and you're standing in
A
your
spoon
kitchen
of
in
cold
socks,
cereal
phone
frozen
in one
halfway
hand,
to
your mouth in the other, when the group chat lights up. Derek. A screenshot. Cropped tight so all you can see is one green number. Up 340% since purchase. 15 fire emojis roll in under it in under a minute. Someone writes, "Teach me king." You put the spoon down. You open your own brokerage app. Thumb on the fingerprint scanner for a second longer than usual. Like some part of you already knows what it's going to say. $3,000. Hasn't moved in 11 months. No fire emojis under this one. No screenshot anyone would ever ask you for. Here's what I need you to sit with for a second. Because it's the entire reason this video exists. In about 4 years, that boring, motionless, slightly embarrassing $3,000 is going to make you richer than every single person celebrating in that group chat tonight, Derek included. Not because you're smarter, not because you know something they don't about which stock to buy, because you're about to do the one thing almost nobody on earth can actually do with money, which is nothing on purpose for a very long time, while it works in the background whether you're paying attention or not. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why boring beats exciting almost every single time. Money is involved, and you're going to see the actual numbers that prove it. Let's rewind 3 years. You're 23. Sitting cross-legged on your bed at 1:40 in the morning, laptop open, reading an article about compound interest. You clicked on by accident and now cannot stop reading. It's not exciting. It's genuinely upsetting once you plug in your own numbers. Money invested at 23 instead of 33 doesn't just get 10 extra years. Depending on the return, it can end up worth 2 to 3 times as much by retirement. Same amount of money, same rate of return. Wildly different outcome purely because of when the clock started ticking. That's not a hot take. That's just what an exponential curve does. And it might be the single most unfair feeling rule in all of personal finance. There's a second number that keeps you up even later that night. Roughly a third of adults have less than a $1,000 total saved. No floor, no cushion. Nothing standing between them and a bad week turning into a bad year. And that gap between fine for now and actually safe is the reason you can't close the laptop yet. So at 1:52 a.m., you pick a number. Not 10, not $10,000, $3,000, small enough to actually find in a normal life, large enough to mean something if you never touch it. You start calling it, only in your head, the $3,000 test. The test was never really about the number. It was about whether you could build something and then do absolutely nothing to it. Anyone can save money for a week. Almost nobody can leave it alone for years. That's the actual skill. Everything else is just arithmetic. You set up $40 a week, automated, moving the same day your paycheck lands, before you ever see the number sitting in your checking account. I want you to pay attention to this part specifically, because it matters more than almost anything else in this entire story. Automation doesn't just save money. It removes an entire version of you from the decision. The you at 11 p.m. scrolling a shopping cart, phone glowing in a dark room doesn't get a vote, because the transfer already happened while that version of you was asleep. You're not relying on willpower. You're relying on a system that doesn't need willpower at all. You're 24 now. Derek buys a motorcycle. Matta Black, loud enough to hear from 2 streets over. Not because he needs one. Because a coworker got one first. And Derek has never once in his life been able to stand being a single step behind anyone. He finances it over 4 years at a rate he admits, laughing, he never actually read. He'll have handed the bank a small, extra vehicle's worth of money in interest alone. He posts a video riding down the highway at golden hour, caption, living. You watch it once, standing in your kitchen again, then you close the app, and your $40 moves, like it does every single week. Here's the comparison Derek will never make. That motorcycle starts losing value the second he rides it off the lot. Every single month, while your $40 is going into something that, held over long enough stretches, has historically trended in the completely opposite direction. Same age. Roughly the same income, completely opposite direction. He's buying a feeling that costs him money. Every single month for 4 straight years. You're buying decades. 6 months in, your account reads $240. It feels like almost nothing. And I want to be honest with you about this part, because most videos skip straight past it. The middle of any compounding curve looks flat, almost insulting, compared to how consistent you've actually been. This is the exact stretch where most people quit. Not because the plan stopped working, but because the plan never looked like it was working in the first place, And nobody ever warns you that the flattest, most discouraging part of the whole process happens right at the beginning, before the curve has anything real to show for itself. You run the math and realize you're still over a year away from $3,000, a full year of watching. Everyone around you get instant, visible wins while your number crawls forward by $10 and $20 at a time. You sit on the edge of your bed at midnight, thumb hovering over the setting that would switch the automation off, just for a while, just to breathe, just to feel normal for a month. You don't press it. You just close the app and go to sleep. This is the moment almost nobody shows you in these stories, because it's not a dramatic moment. It's just a quiet decision made in the dark that nobody will ever know about. And it's the exact moment that decides everything that comes after it. You're 25. Somewhere in these months, without ever marking the exact day, the $40 stops feeling like a sacrifice and starts feeling like nothing at all. The way locking your front door is nothing. The way brushing your teeth is nothing. Your balance crosses $12,100. You bump the weekly transfer to $55 without really deciding to. The same way people who start running eventually start craving the run instead of dreading it. That's not motivation. Motivation runs out. This is just what a habit does once it stops requiring you to think about it every time. Derek gets promoted that spring and celebrates by leasing a car that costs more per month than your entire rent payment. It's an investment in perception, he tells you over lunch, completely serious. People treat you differently when you pull up in something nice. You do the math in your head without meaning to, because at this point you can't not do the math anymore. Over the 4-year lease, he'll pay out more than the car is even worth, and at the end of it, he'll own absolutely nothing, already signing paperwork for the next one before this one's even off the lot. You don't argue. You've genuinely stopped needing him to see it your way, and if I'm honest with you, that quiet moment right there, not the money, not the number, is the real turning point of this entire story. The second you stop needing someone else to validate the boring decision is the exact second the boring decision stops being hard. You're 26 again, back at the beginning, standing in the same kitchen where this whole video started. $3,000, sitting completely untouched. And you finally do the thing you promised yourself you'd do the moment you hit it. You leave it exactly where it is, and you start a second pile from zero. This is the part almost nobody explains about the $3,000 test. The part that separates it from just saving money like everyone tells you to do. Hitting the number once proves nothing on its own. What actually matters is what happens to that first $3,000 while you stop watching it entirely. 18 months later, without you adding a single additional dollar, it's grown to $3,909. $100 appeared from nowhere. From nothing except time and interest quietly compounding while you slept, worked, lived a completely unremarkable life in between. That's the whole engine right there in one sentence. Compounding doesn't need your attention. It works better without it. The less you touch it, the harder it works. Derek's motorcycle needs a new transmission that summer. $2,600. He doesn't have it liquid, and it ends up on the emergency card he swore out loud in front of you he'd never touch again. The same one already sitting at 24%. Interest from the last time he swore that. He posts noticeably less that month. You don't say anything about it. Because rule 1 of this whole approach, the one you never wrote down anywhere but always somehow knew, is you don't announce a win to someone who's quietly losing. You're 27. You run the test a second time, this round in 8 months instead of 18, because the muscle is already built. Because saving without spending stops requiring willpower once it stops, feeling like an active decision at all. Combined accounts cross $9,000. Derek asks, half joking, half not, how you're always so calm about money. You tell him honestly you just don't think about it much. That's not modesty. That's the actual endpoint of automating a habit long enough. It stops requiring thought, which frees up the exact mental energy. Derek is spending every single week wondering whether he can afford the next thing he already told everyone he was getting. Now here's where it gets genuinely interesting, because this next part is the section most people watching. This will get wrong in their own lives, even after everything you just heard. I already know what some of you are thinking right now, because I used to think it too. $3,000 isn't going to change my life. That's not real money, and you're right in a way. $3,000 sitting in a drawer doing nothing isn't going to change anything. But that's not what's actually happening here. And this is the part that trips almost everyone up. The $3,000 isn't the result. It's the trigger. It's the smallest amount that's big enough to force you to build the actual system. The automation, the habit of not touching it, the identity shift of being someone who leaves money alone. Once that system exists, it doesn't care whether it's holding $3,000 or $30,000 or $300,000. The system is the asset. The number is just what proves the system works. People who wait for a real amount of money before they build the habit almost never build the habit at all, because there's always a version of real money that feels one step further away than whatever they currently have. You're 28. The market drops hard that spring, one of those stretches where every finance channel on your feed is screaming. Red arrows everywhere, and your balance falls 11% in 9 trading days. Derek sends a laughing emoji about your big investments. You don't panic. And here's the comparison that quietly separates the two of you for good. A market drop while you're still buying every single week isn't a loss. It's a discount, as long as you never sell into it. Historically, the steepest drawdowns have always eventually been followed by new highs, for anyone patient enough to still be holding when it happens. You increase your weekly transfer instead of pausing it, buying more shares at a lower price, while everyone around you is selling out of pure fear. Derek sells his entire position at the exact bottom that same week. The same week his motorcycle payment is late for the second time. He doesn't post about it. The silence tells you everything the caption never did. You're 29. Derek gets serious with someone for the first time in years. And for a moment it actually looks like the leasing, the motorcycle, the whole loud performance might finally settle down. Then a wedding invitation lands in your inbox. A coworker's open bar, destination location. Exactly the kind of event Derek treats as a personal challenge rather than an expense. He puts the flight and a new suit on a card he's still paying off from Christmas. You do the same math you always do without meaning to anymore. Someone carrying a revolving credit. Card balance is often paying north of 20% just to keep that debt alive, which means every single dollar Derek spends celebrating someone else's wedding is quietly costing him more than $1 by the time it's actually paid off, if it ever fully is. You go to the same wedding, you pay for your flight in cash, out of an account that was funded weeks ago, on a schedule you don't even remember setting anymore, and you don't think about it again after that. You're 30. Combined accounts cross $34,000. Not from a lucky pick, not from a group chat tip. From 4 straight years of $40, then $55, then $70 a week, moving automatically before you ever had a real chance to talk yourself out of it. Derek is still leasing cars, still one bad month away from a real problem, still the loudest person in every room he walks into, and somehow, underneath all of it, the most fragile person you know. Loud and fragile, quiet and stable. That contradiction is basically the whole video, if you strip away every single number in it. Quick recap, because this is the part people rewatch the most. The $3,000 test isn't a savings challenge. It's an identity test. Pick a small number, automate it before you see it. Never touch it no matter how loud everything else gets. That's it. That's the entire mechanism behind everything that's about to happen for the rest of this story. And it's the same mechanism behind almost every quiet financial success story you'll ever hear, dressed up in different numbers. You're 32. A recruiter reaches out about work you've wanted since college. Work that actually means something to you, but it pays less than what you're making right now. 4 years ago, you couldn't have even considered it because you needed every single dollar of every paycheck just to keep pace with your own life. Now you don't. 9 years of quietly running the $3,000 test bought you a door most people never even know exists. The one marked, "You can walk through this even at a pay cut." Because you already built the floor underneath you a long time ago? You take the job. Derek asks, genuinely confused how you can afford it. You tell him about a number you picked at 23, at 1:52 in the morning, scared of wasting your own life. He laughs like it's a joke. It was never a joke. It was the only serious decision you made in your entire 20s. And it's the reason every single decision after it got easier. You're 34 now, 2 years into the new job, and something happens that puts the entire thing in perspective in a way none of the numbers ever quite managed to. Derek calls late on a Sunday and asks if you're free for coffee. He looks tired in a way that has nothing to do with sleep. He tells you the lease is ending on the car, and this time he's not getting another one. He tells you the credit card balance he's been carrying for years finally caught up with him, that the minimum payments have quietly grown into something that eats a real portion of his paycheck every single month, that he's been too embarrassed to bring it up until now. He asks carefully, like it costs him something to ask, how you actually did it. You think about telling him about the $3,000. Test the way I've told you tonight. The whole story. The sticky note, the automation, the market drop, all of it. Instead, you tell him the one sentence that actually matters. The one underneath every other sentence in this entire video. Pick a number small enough that you can start this week. Move it before you ever see it. And then simply don't touch it, no matter what anyone else around you is doing. He writes it down on a napkin, the way you once wrote a number on a sticky note 11 years earlier. And for the first time in over a decade, you watch Derek do something quiet instead of loud. Put the two of you side by side for a second, because that's really the whole point of this story, and I want you to actually picture it. Same starting income at 23, same city, roughly the same rent, roughly the same take-home pay after taxes, every single month for 9 straight years. Add up Derek's total interest paid across those 9 years. The motorcycle, the leased cars, the wedding trip, the emergency card he never fully cleared, and it lands somewhere close to what your entire second. $3,000. Pile grew into completely on its own, without you lifting a finger after the initial setup. He worked exactly as hard as you did, every single one of those 9 years. Nobody can say Derek didn't work hard. He just handed a meaningful chunk of that effort straight to a bank, a dealership, and a credit card company, one convenient monthly payment at a time, while your effort quietly compounded in the opposite direction, growing instead of leaking every single month, whether you were thinking about it or not. Here's the lesson underneath all of this, and it's simpler than most people want it to be, which is exactly why most people skip right past it. Discipline stops feeling like discipline the exact moment you stop negotiating with yourself every single week. The people who look like they're winning early are often just spending their future loudly, in the present tense, for an audience that forgets about it by the next post. The people who look boring, who never post anything, who never have a screenshot worth sharing, are usually just letting time do the one thing time is actually good at, which is turning small, repeated, unremarkable decisions into outcomes big enough that nobody sees coming. $3,000 was never a lot of money. That was always the entire point of choosing that number. Small enough to actually find in a completely normal life. Boring enough to ignore for months at a time. Slow enough that almost nobody on Earth has the patience to let it prove anything at all before they give up on it. Most people watching this video right now will still buy the motorcycle. Not because they don't understand the math you just heard, because sitting still while someone else looks like they're winning is the single hardest test money will ever give anyone, and almost everyone fails it in the first 6 months, without even realizing they failed. You didn't fail it, not because you're a genius, not because you got lucky. Just 40 a week, moving quietly in the background where nobody could see it, and the willingness to feel invisible for exactly as long as it took to stop being fragile. So here's the actual question this video is asking you. Underneath everything else, what's your $3,000 number? What's the amount small enough that you could genuinely start this week? Automate it before you ever see it land in your account. And then simply refuse to touch it no matter how loud everyone else around you gets. Because that number, whatever it is for you, is sitting somewhere in your life right now, waiting for you to stop negotiating with yourself long enough to let it actually work. If this is the first time you've thought about money this way, that's completely fine. That's exactly why you're here. Write your number down somewhere tonight, the same way it started on a sticky note 11 years ago in this story. Not in a note app you'll forget, somewhere you'll actually see it. Set up one automatic transfer this week, even if it's 10, even if it feels almost too small to matter, because remember, the number was never the point, the system was. And if you want to see exactly what happens when someone runs this same test with a completely different starting number, a completely different timeline, I've got another one of these breakdowns waiting for you, and I think you're going to want to see how differently the same idea can play out.